mouse. There we go. We've officially commenced.
Hey, Bob, I got a question. Have you ever tried making, it's Nick.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I couldn't tell. There you go. All right.
That's all good. You ever tried making that longitudinal, I can't speak right now. Jesus. The long cut you do on like the side of a plastic sub. I know it's typically done with like a disc cutter and a Dremel. Have you ever tried it with a razor saw?
That's what I prefer to do. Yeah, because the advantage to that is, you know, the long blade helps keep that line straight.
Yeah.
It also depends a lot on what you're cutting. You know, if it's a plastic styrene model versus a fiberglass model, it makes a big difference. Like I know in the old Gato DVD that David Merriman put together, he cut that hull with a cutoff disc in his Dremel, and it was melting it and flinging, you know, molten plastic everywhere. So I would definitely have used a razor saw for that, and I think that's my weapon of choice for splitting a hull. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've had the same experience with the rotary cutters, just heating it up too darn much, and you could have the best, most rigid setup and it's still going to walk a bit. I wanted to set up a fixture and use one of the Zona saws I had and attempt that on that Type 23.
Yeah. Yep. I would say that's exactly what you want to do. The only time I probably wouldn't use a razor saw is if it was a real thick fiberglass hull, because then it would take a year and a day. And those diamond cutoff wheels for a rotary tool, they just like butter through there.
Yeah, I have a bunch of those. Cool. Right on. Good to know.
Yep. Yeah, and the key to that obviously too is just like even slow strokes, because if you go too quick, it'll heat up and then it'll start binding against the blade.
I was kind of thinking about maybe splitting it, like, you know, that hull's four sections, right?
Yep.
Of the kit. I was kind of playing around with the idea of maybe bonding the two pieces of each side, the port and starboard side, laying them flat on a surface and then setting up some sort of fence or fixture that I could actually rest the side of the saw blade. The Zona saw, I have one of the one for making some deep cuts. It's not a real shallow blade. It's a taller blade.
The other thing that you could try that I've done that's actually worked, if the piece that you're cutting is fairly like doesn't have like a rounded contour, you know, if it's like more cylindrical, you can score it with a hobby knife. And if you score it like 5 or 6 times and just wiggle it, it'll snap and it'll make a perfectly clean line. So that's another option as well.
Yeah, it's good to know.
You'd have to make the down cuts with the razor saw, but if it's a long cut, you could put, you know, like a flexible steel ruler down and just keep scoring it over and over, and then it'll just snap.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was kind of considering scoring it over and over with a razor as well. I've done that before in the past. Worked pretty well, but it takes a long time, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get if possible, I like the razor saws because there's like almost zero kerf to the cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lazy. I don't want to do a lot of filling.
I understand.
Hey Bob, I was wondering what plastics you recommend for 3D printing. I heard you didn't you say use PLA plus, or you said something like that?
I have, and it's fine. I have just basically succumbed to the fact that if I'm going to 3D print a hull, I'm probably going to do it in PLA plastic. Rob's nodding his head. You're just going to need to to acknowledge the fact that you're going to need to baby the hull if you bring it outside in the heat. I've tried printing with ABS and I've tried printing with ASA. Depending on the ASA that you use, and Steve is here and he's done a lot with ASA, but depending on the filament you use, the melting point is only 10 to 15 degrees higher than PLA. So it's not significantly more adverse to distortion in the heat. It is a little bit, but it is also significantly more challenging to print with.
Yeah, and it's more flexible, I see, on average. Can be.
Steve's shaking his head. No.
Okay, yeah, I printed my boat in PLA, so I just gotta be a little careful. Not take it out when it's 100 degrees.
Keep it in the shade, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Just don't leave it in the sun.
Okay.
You know, I'm printing in PLA as well, and I never quite fully understood this whole fear about the sun. I mean, if you think about the nozzle temperature, which is like 220, so it's not, I mean, you really have to let it bake in the sun before it gets affected.
Well, I left the part out in the sun for, I think it was 3 days. It was just like a failed part. I just wanted to see what happened. And after 3 days out in the sun, it was about like 80, 90 degrees each day. In the sun, it was warped.
Is the submarine painted black as well?
Dudes, I'm telling you, this has happened to me with 3 boats. And my guy Jason, we 3D printed Redoubtable, and we left it. He was sanding it outside, and he left it out for 20 minutes in the Florida sun. And when it came back, it was collapsed like mush.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, it's fine, you know. Just don't leave it in the sun.
People don't realize that in the U.S., asphalt you could fry eggs on it during the summertime.
Yeah, a black boat will, you know, it'll only take 2 or 3 minutes. That's all it'll take, and it'll heat that sucker up. And you know, depending on the boat, you know, for example, the I-400 that I got coming out, I intentionally made that hull almost 4 millimeters thick. So it's going to have a massive amount of rigidity, but it'll also take a lot more energy, solar energy, to heat the plastic all the way through to the point where it'll distort. But something like the Alpha that I just came out with, so when Randy did that file, it was originally designed for 72nd scale, but scaled down, it's probably only 2 millimeters thick. So it's going to take very little solar energy to heat it up to the point where it's going to go mushy on you. So just,
right.
And if that's a worry or a challenge, and I can't remember, Steve, if you've done this in the past. I know I have. You can actually lay up glass on the inside, and that'll provide structural rigidity on the inside of the boat, so it won't be so prone to distortion.
I did that on the joints on the Redoubtable, but not the full hull.
Yep.
I am printing the permit right now at 1/48 scale. And it's turning out really well. It's in ABS Plus, and I'm planning to run some strips of fiberglass tape along the length of it in the top and the bottom. I have had in the hot sun my Columbia, which is ASA, because it's so long and skinny. I mean, it bowed the top of the deck when it was loose, when it was sitting off of the hull, but it very easily went back in position, and I got it back on the hull, and everything's fine. It's not cracked or anything like that. But because it's so long, I expected it to warp. And it's black, and I mean, it was sitting in the baking sun for quite a period of time before I got the boat set up and ready to go. But it had no adverse effects, unlike PLA, which I think it would be destructive.
Yeah.
So laying it up with just like a very thin layer of
4 ounce
fiberglass.
4 ounce fiberglass. And I'm not sure, maybe Dave Merriman would know, would polyester resin, would it attack the plastic? I know epoxy won't, because I've used epoxy.
I don't think it would.
Polyester? I don't
Probably
know.
have to test it.
I can maybe test. I have spare parts that have failed and whatnot.
I mean, epoxy is just so much easier to work with, but you know, obviously
Right.
polyester is around everywhere and it's cheap. So, but you
Right.
don't need much. Just like the 4-ounce stuff would be enough just to provide that interior shell.
Right. So if it wants to deform just a little bit, it won't because it has an extra strength.
Yep.
It won't
Yep.
deform. And then once your boat's in the water will dissipate that energy just fine, probably.
Yeah. That's not. It's only transport and storage
it.
you need to worry about. Yeah.
Got it. Well, I live in Washington State, so it's not really that hot that much.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Just a few days, it gets to about above 90.
You know, actually, what would be super fun? I should think about this. I'm gonna put it on my list. I'm gonna bring a chunk of PLA hull to Subfest, and we're gonna do an experiment on site. Or I'll print out 3 different sections. We'll leave it out, and we'll run an experiment, and we'll see what happens.
Good idea.
That'd be interesting. We'll time it. We'll do like a time lapse video thing on it. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I was just thinking, put a video camera next to it or time lapse photography, and so when it happened, when it started to melt.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do it. Maybe Steve, if we could give you some homework, you could print out an ASA or ABS, and we can have PLA, ABS, and ASA. That would blow up on YouTube. People would love to see that.
Yeah. I did put a piece of ASA on my driveway, black asphalt driveway, in the hot sun last year before I started printing with it, just as a test to see what it would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I left it out there all day and it didn't do a thing to it.
Okay.
I mean, it was a small piece, but it will warp depending on the size of the part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it just, is it enough to cause a problem or not? It just won't soften to the point of sagging and deforming that I can tell.
Yeah, I just think it'd be cool to have the 3 right side by side with a time lapse camera, and you could just, of course, this isn't going to work if it's, cloudy and cool when we're there, but whatever, we'll figure it out. So Ed, are you packing up your room? It looks like you got like shelves down, boats are sitting on the floor.
Yeah, that's the problem. We have Lockheed Martin is doing the actual move. They're going to come in here and pack everything up and move everything out, and they're not touching that. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3.
Oh.
Okay, so and I have 4 more boats in the other room. So we're fitting all of that, 3 chihuahuas, a budgie, and the 2 ladies in an RV.
I think you'll be okay.
What's going to happen? And all my long rifles, of course. So we'll see what happens. As long as I get
How
New
long is
Jersey,
the
I'm
trip,
happy.
Ed? How long is the trip?
26 hours.
Where are you going?
Dallas, Texas. Midlothian, Texas is where the new house is.
Okay, so who's flying back?
Nobody. We're done. New York is hitting me on the way out. Its doors hitting me on the way out. So it's the grand adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's happening all on the weekend of Groton. So it might bring Subfest into play, but I got to see what time is available. So.
Well, prioritize your stuff. Move faster so you can come to Subfest.
Well, the plus side is the new house has a pool, so now I have a test tank.
Hey, there you go.
And the guy has a outdoor workshop. It's a marriage made in heaven.
There you go. Awesome. Very cool. So just a couple of updates from my side. We're picking up my son from summer camp tomorrow. He spent the last like 2.5 months there being a camp counselor. So he's got long, scraggly peach fuzz beard and mustache. We're gonna have to hold him down and shear him like a sheep because his hair is so damn thick and long. But he's gonna be back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we fly up to Des Moines to drive him up to Ames, where he'll be going to Iowa State. So this week's pretty well a write-off for me because I want to spend some time with him before he heads up to camp, but we're going to do the best we can to keep things going. That 21 is finally getting close to being done. I don't know if you guys saw the video, the update video that I did yesterday. So that one, that 21 was built by a guy by the name of Jens, or it was started by a guy by the name of Jens up in Quebec. And he did it like a stupendous job. That cylinder is an absolute work of art. But I'm gonna as an opinion piece to the group here, I'm gonna say, you know, that cylinder has like a ton of features. It's got like an angle-based dual piston system with like depth control override and retracting valve planes and like all of this different stuff all built into it. It probably took me like 40 to 50 hours to take the cylinder that was already built and finish it up and get it ready to go. You know, bells and whistles are fine, but just be aware that you're going to spend probably as much time or more time fixing, maintaining, and diagnosing that cylinder as you are running it. You know, I am a massive fan of like the original Merriman, you know, gas ballast system. It was like bulletproof, that keep it simple, stupid mentality. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the best submarine is the one that is operational. And if that means that it moves and it dives and that's it, I'm perfectly cool with that. I would way rather have a boat that I could throw in the water and it'll work 90% of the time than the one that'll work 50% of the time and I'm pulling my hair out trying to figure out what's wrong with it the rest of the time. So that's just my opinion. There's a mathematical rule. There's an exponential increase in the probability of failure for every additional system you add. So, you know, everybody who inquires of me for a build is always, oh, periscopes, torpedoes, missiles, radar, you know, all of this stuff. And that's all well and good, but just be aware that everything you add is going to have an impact to you down the road. So if I had a piece of advice, it would be, it's fine to have a project boat like that you can pick at and flex your creative muscles on, but for heaven's sakes, get a different boat that you literally just turn on, toss into the water, and you can just run and have fun with every single time.
Bob?
Yo.
The Elon Musk Maxim. The best part is no part.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
On your note about KISS and all that, and I'm also reading your wonderful book now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really getting your point about, you know, where you want to play it safe and simple and keep a slightly positive buoyancy and all that. And I totally get that. And then I'm watching you and your Nautilus behind you that is diving at the middle of the pool. So yeah. How did, like right now, how did you do this?
So that particular boat is not ballasted slightly positive. So here's some background on it. This is an interesting sort. So that particular boat was built as a custom order for a very famous music composer. He wrote all of the songs for all of the like famous artists from like the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm not going to drop names, but I mean, you would know all of the artists and all of the songs, like super, super famous, but he's a Nautilus nut. And that particular boat is based off the custom replica 66-inch Nautilus kit, and it's running an OTW dive module. So that's got a pressure ballast system, and it is capable of full static diving. So the whole trick to the performance that you see this particular boat undertaking in the background behind me right now is trimming. You know, I don't think enough people put enough focus on trimming their boat out perfectly. You know, they'll trim it out good enough, but you'll see. And if you make it to Subfest, and if Dave's in a good enough mood, if you ply him with liquor or something, he might let you run one of his boats, and that will show you what a perfectly trimmed boat can be like to operate. You know, you literally with one hand, you're driving it at periscope depth without having to touch it. And it's not because there's electronics doing the work, it's physics. And that's really cool. So that's what this boat is all about. It's perfectly trimmed, you know, a little bit of negative buoyancy, and you just kind of burp it until you get to neutral, and then it has a bow thruster, which is what it's doing. Is it right now? It's spinning around its axis. It had a bow thruster, so it was a 360-degree turn, submerged, stationary maneuver.
Wow. And you even have radio reception at that depth in your chlorinated pool.
Yep. That particular pool, we didn't keep a lot of chlorine in it.
Oh, nifty.
Hey, Dave, I got one for you regarding Keep It Simple, Stupid. You'll appreciate this too. The more you complicate the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain. You said it. From one surgeon to another, Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott.
That's right, Star Trek 3.
I live by that rule. The more you complicate the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain.
A little souvenir for you, doctor, from one surgeon to another. All right, that's enough geek stuff.
Got a question.
All right.
With the snort system, you're pulling air in through a snorkel tube, no, not a snorkel, but just a tube. You're pulling it through a pump or pushing it through a pump and into the ballast tank where it's non-consequential if there's any water in the tube. It eventually clears the water out and you have air going into the ballast tank. With the pump, will a typical, does it take a special pump to do that? Or I know like the diaphragm pumps that are in the typical sub drivers, if I'm not mistaken, they're diaphragm, they'll do it. And you're not talking a large volume of water there, but I was just curious.
It'll pump water and air with equal enthusiasm.
Okay.
Yeah, the diaphragm pumps will do that. If you wanted to use a gear pump, you know, obviously they're suited for fluids. So you could do the same thing, but you would need to kind of replumb it. So instead of pumping air, you'd be pumping water. So you could do the same setup. You would just replumb it a little bit.
Okay.
But a centrifugal pump wouldn't really be suitable because those leak like a bastard. You know, you put it in the water and the next thing you know, it'd be decks awash without venting. So
yeah, the thing with the systems we're using, you need a positive displacement pump. That means no linkage. And a centrifugal pump by design is inherently leaky. It requires centrifugal force to throw a fluid out into the volutes. Well, when it's not throwing fluid, the volutes are a passageway for backflow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just
and
thinking, that's why I asked.
in my system on the Seaview, I wanted something that would compress the air in the ballast, and I found that, and I might be wrong, the system that worked, the pump that worked the best was a centrifugal pump, but like everybody said, that will leak back. But
you got to pinch it off. You have to pinch it off once it's done.
Yeah, a solenoid shuts down. Once that shuts off, and that's it. There's no more water movement. And the other one, because a centrifugal pump really only works one direction, I have the other pump with the solenoid also. So they open up when the pump is on, and they shut down when the pump is off. And it
Mhm.
seems to work well.
Well, but that's owed to complexity. You had to put those solenoid valves in there.
Right. So the KISS theory went out the window with that. But I'm learning, and I could see myself modifying that to the way you guys, the systems that you guys have. But I just want to get this thing in the water.
I hear that.
Yeah, that's the different what Dave referred to there, positive displacement. Does everybody know what like that means? It's like for every one revolution of the pump, a set volume will be pumped. And it doesn't matter if it's spinning at 10,000 RPM or 2 RPM, that volume per revolution will stay the same.
If we're talking about a non-compressible fluid like water or oil, when
Correct.
you're talking gas, it changes. It depends,
Correct.
depends on
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. Which again, the difference with centrifugal is it requires that speed, that centrifugal force to push the water out. So
The motion of the fluid itself forces it in one direction.
Yep. Yeah, that would be a really cool topic for a video. I should think about that. The different types of pumps would be an interesting topic to go over.
Yeah, and the other reason why I went with the centrifugal was because the Seaview is 8.5 feet long. I didn't want I didn't want this thing to take a half hour to submerge, because it does ride high in the water and it takes a lot of water. So this thing pumped a significant amount of water.
Yep.
But
That's good.
like I said, I have to have the solenoid.
Yep.
And your electronics thing, the double switching thing, I forgot the name of it.
Yep.
That thing worked. The HP switcher, that thing was perfect for this. Perfect. So
yeah,
I eliminated a solenoid with a micro switch with all kinds of electronics just because of that one that HP switcher.
Yep.
It worked out great.
So like what you were talking about, there's this relationship between like displacement and pressure, or volume and pressure. Typically, the higher the volume, like the lower the pressure. It's spewing volume out, but you can put your thumb over it, right? But if you got lower, like think about a peristaltic pump, like that thing, you couldn't stop that if you wanted to. It'll squirt that, but it'll take a year to fill your ballast tank.
Yeah. Well, that's why I put a lot of accumulator tank in there, so that it didn't really have to reach that higher pressure. It would just put water in there.
Yeah.
So I had to play with this, and hopefully this works well. And like I said, this is only my first sub. The next ones I can see, they're going to be modified.
Sure.
But I want to get the freaking thing in the water.
We're looking forward to it.
Bob.
Yeah.
I'm fighting with the Acula 2 from Engel with the water line.
Okay.
You have one of this still?
I don't know that I ever had the Acula 2 come through.
No, you had the Engel, the 212, right?
Yeah, I had the 212, which is basically the baby version of it, right?
Yes, it's the same system, but I'm really hard. I think in the water intake pipe is some kind of air still inside. Is my guessing. Maybe 20 grams, 30 grams, because the piston tank is like this. The pipe goes like this to the aft section. So I have to do it tomorrow with in my bathroom in the tub, and to bring her upside and then come up.
Yeah, you could maybe try flipping it upside down. Yeah, and then cycle the pump.
No, like this, and then the air goes up, and then I remove the water to come up, and then complete air comes out. I will try it. I'm really
the other thing you could do is, but you don't have access to. I was going to say you could put a vent on the top. Just a little hole that you could put a screw in to block it off, but to vent the air out.
Yeah, but then the boat is closed.
Yeah, that's the thing with the smaller boats. You know, it's funny. You get a little air bubble, and it can throw the trim off so easily.
Good idea with this. Maybe I can build in something like a I don't know in English to get out the air.
The vents,
What-
yeah.
Vents.
What about
Yes.
if you put, not to interrupt, but what about if you put a brass tube with a U on the top and you make it so you can slide it in and out of your ballast tank at a certain height? So you could raise that and raise the water level in there. If I'm thinking of what I'm, this is what you're talking about, and you could change the height at which the air will leave by raising and lowering that tube. So once you got it right, then you just stop it there.
Okay. One moment. One moment.
I was thinking of doing this with mine. Once I get that little bit of positive buoyancy with, I don't know how much water my ballast is going to need. Once I find that, set this tube at that height, and now it won't vent any more air once it reaches that height.
The flexible pipe, it goes down like this to the aft section. And here's the intake.
Yeah.
So when tomorrow I will do it, I will submerge her and then I will put like this.
Yeah.
And then I want to take out the water. That there is no any air bubble. But I see now I can put it in the water with the aft section only. I have to see if it still works.
Yeah,
this piston tank is so fast. I never saw it before. I don't know why. I will see. And I disabled the Hall system to count RPMs because I have many problems with this.
Oh, with the proportional ballast? Is that what you're talking about, the Hall sensor?
Yeah, he's counting the RPMs, and in the beginning, I got this boat used. There was many errors in. The guy built it wrong together. On the test rack was missing screws. So, and it was moving like this. I switch on, like this, and I would make a reset. Doesn't work. So, and this is the second version of the piston tank electronic, and that's not so good because
that's a single tank system though, right?
Yes.
Like I said, there's only one piston tank, correct?
Yeah, it's 750 milliliter. Whoa, so much.
I don't understand why you would want proportional control of a single piston tank. But who would? Why would they build it that way? Because if it's half full, the boat will be sitting like this.
The thing is, with this counting, you can put your switch in one position. It moves 80%.
Right.
And then you have a fine trimming, the last %. That is the meaning or the idea behind this. But I don't like it.
But when you've only got one tank, it's going to pull from one, the water's going to fill from one side to the other. So it's going to get heavy in the front and then it'll get heavy in the back.
Like this, yes.
So if you stop halfway, it's going to be nose down.
No. Okay, there is some errors in the trimming still. I have to check it out the next days, but I spent already time with this. And the water line is not right if I'm on the surface.
Right.
There's the white line outside from the hull, and it is 1 centimeter deeper. It's strange.
So
One guy in the
it's too heavy or it's too light?
Excuse me?
The boat is too heavy or it's too light?
There is too heavy.
Oh, so when you fill the tank, it goes straight down to the bottom.
The strange thing is, if I submerge, at one point he will go under. And then I can still move the tank for 3 seconds more. That means there is more ballast, but still too heavy the boat. So I remove two strips of the lead and I have to check. But now this is strange. I never had this like this. Strange.
You may be able to put foam in the bow and stern of the boat as well, up high.
There's no way, because this nearly a ready to run boat.
Oh,
I can't do it.
yep.
This is the pity. This is the thing on these angle boats. I have to see how I can manage this.
Yep.
Any room in the sail?
Wait, I show you.
If it's set up like the
You
212,
just
there's
wanna-
actually, if it's set up like the 212, there's actually a periscope system in the sail.
Okay, and he's got, and it sounds like definitely he has a lot of leeway in negative buoyancy. So he could take out, he should start trimming weight everywhere.
But the problem with that is when you take lead out of the keel, now all of a sudden the boat is not statically stable. It's gonna like flip itself over when you turn the prop.
This is a boat.
Yep.
Yeah,
No chance. No chance.
No, yeah, there's no, the sail is not free flow.
No. There is a dry hull.
Okay. I
That's
thought
the-
maybe the sail would have been free flood.
Yeah, that would not be, would not bad, but
Yeah. Yeah. Just a tube.
it's strange.
Yep.
That's a conundrum.
So that's, that's interesting. And this kind of goes back to this.
There's 2 strips of lead inside, but I removed 2 strips. So, and the aft section was too high. Really strange behavior. I don't know what. Have to see next days. I think there is air inside in this thing. If I were really full, I'm not sure. Or in the beginning of the piston tank, if it really at the end, that is above. But to put a screw inside is a nice idea. But I can't because the piston is moving. So,
Right.
And it's the nearly highest point of the piston tank. So I have to see.
Yeah, scratch my idea.
Yes. Oh, but the pipe is a nice idea, but you have to use it to a different system then.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had a piston moving back and forth.
I'll keep you updated next days.
Yeah, that'd be good. It'd be interesting. Next meeting, you can update us on how you make out. It's interesting, the early days of RC submarines, it was all dry hull, right? Or quasi dry hull. They were boxes, watertight boxes with like lids that people would screw down with 100 million bolts on the top, like the old
I just read,
But the challenge with that, obviously they're super heavy, but in my experience, they're also much more much trickier to trim properly because you don't have the annular space around to put lead in the keel and foam, up high. You have to only play with the displacement of the watertight compartment and ballast in the keel. So in some plate times it makes sense. And actually that huge Gato that you guys have seen in my shop, that 10-foot long Gato, that's still going to be a dry hull boat, but it's a little different. It's got 2 watertight compartments, but there's still the vast majority of the hull floods. So it's kind of a dry hull, but it's not really a dry hull boat. It's a little bit of a hybrid.
Hey, Bob, on that Gatto that you have, I wasn't a guy, the original owner wasn't a guy named Bob Leader, was it?
I don't know who the original owner was. This gentleman bought it off of the original builder back in like the early 90s. And apparently he was a welder. He had this like gas system and he was using welding gas as the ballast gas to blow ballast. So, I mean, super innovative, he made it all work, but yeah, I couldn't tell you who the original owner was.
Yeah, what first got me into submarines was probably back in the 80s, a 32nd parallel kit. And I met a guy from, I think it was Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey. His name was Bud Leader. and he had one of those.
Yeah,
he had
we
one of
heard-
those big.
yeah, I've heard his name before. Dave knows who you're talking about.
Yeah. What's
Bud
that?
pretty much commissioned people to build his boats for him.
Yeah,
Oh,
Skip
did-
built his boats.
Yeah, I know him and Skip were close. But yeah, I used to keep in contact with him. Shoot, through the early '90s, but I lost track of him, and I haven't heard anything. And I just like what you just explained about that Gatto was similar to the way that his boat was set up. It wasn't a full dry hull boat. It had multiple compartments that were dry hull, and the rest of it was would flood.
Well,
Yeah.
by necessity, most guys building that boat and the big Type 7 went that route. Gene Berger, for example, his boat is segmented into just dedicated dry spaces, dedicated ballast tank, and the rest flooding. But the lower hull was divided by transverse bulkheads to form watertight boxes, which were accessed, as Bob described, by big slabs of Lexan and a zillion machine screws.
And about a gallon of silicone to make the seal.
Well, when you're talking about the history, and Dave can chime in on this, in the late 80s and 90s, it was Skip and Bud, and they were building that semi-dry hull. It's sub-pack. They taught us to put the bulkheads in, epoxy on one side, RTV on the other, and create the lids. And then Dave came out with the WTC in 93, 92, 93, that time frame is when you start look at the gray hairs multiplying on his head.
90, yeah.
Yeah, 90, about that time frame. And then people switched over because it's a lot less laborious.
If I can interrupt just for a minute, credit where credit is due. The Europeans had removable cylinders long before I came on the scene. I was unaware of it, but great minds in science always think of the same thing at the same time. So hats off to the guys in Europe who came up with these ideas first. Sorry.
Well, not only that, I remember you being an ex-torpedoman, understood the design of the radial O-ring, which really, I remember you explaining how that concept helped push that along.
Well, I also learned how
basically,
to scrub shitters and, chip paint. Don't forget that.
but I remember at that time, that was your choice, an angle type dry hull, or build it yourself with the compartments, semi-dry, or Dave coming out with the cylinder. And nowadays, the cylinder is the preferred method because that's really
But yes and no. We're thinking very U.S. centrically. I would still say there's a lot of people who are fans of the dry hull, mostly the older crew, but they're still very, very prevalent with the scratch builders because they're easy, right?
And the Europeans.
Anybody can build a box and put a lid on it, right? But it's a lot harder to manufacture an end cap with critical tolerances for O-rings and that kind of thing.
Now I got more into the WTCs. Now I see the advantages of this system because you have free float water, less weight.
Yeah,
and that's the pity with this angle system. They're really something like this. My next boat I will build in the WTC, of course.
Well, Cantu, don't give up on.
No, I don't give up.
They have their virtues.
they do.
Okay.
When they work really well.
Hang in there. You'll
when?
You'll get it working.
No, I don't give up. No worry, David.
Good.
And one other thing.
you have your other choice, the wooden submarine.
There you go.
Crick.
Rick, yep.
You know this called Spook? Yes, I remember.
Bob, can I bounce us off subject just 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
I'm in the process of building the 192nd Alpha. And I got a question. It's kind of a general question. If in order to get all the mechanism into the stern of this boat, I may have to eliminate the top rudder. Just how important is that in operation?
Don't.
Yeah, you can do it. The reason you're doing that is because you've got interference issues with the linkages, right?
Yeah, I have done everything I can to get I got the elevators working good, and I do have the bottom rudder working good. And I'm doing everything I can to come up with a linkage source for the top one. It's just not enough room in there for all of it, the way I've got it going.
Use individual belt cranks
Yep.
for the upper and lower rudder, and go with the pass-through yoke for the stern planes.
Right, that's what I've got, Dave. I've got a single for the bottom, and the only thing I can do is go a single for the top.
Bingo, no problem. You got 2 push rods, 1 for each rudder, then you gang them together to the one servo output.
Right, but
Come on,
the
this ain't
way
rocket science.
I've got the 2 already, but I don't have enough room in the top to get another horn on it.
You got room in the bottom to put the bottom rudder on. This thing is symmetrical. It's the same deal on the upper rudder. Just repeat.
Okay, then I guess what I'm hearing is I better get the top working. But
let's answer.
As a general question, though, what underwater? That's where you need that top rudder to get a little
the
more.
output turns poorly with both rudders. Now you want to use half of bad? Now it's worse.
So yeah, let's answer. Let's answer his question. So what are you looking at? So basically, what's going to end up happening is your ability to impart yaw to the boat is going to be compromised in submerged form. So you're going to be able to turn the boat, albeit exceptionally slowly when surfaced. And when you submerge, you're going to have that same slow degree of yaw change, but it'll actually be worse because now you've got the upper rudder fin fighting the yaw force as well. So, just bear in mind, these modern boats, they're designed to turn in an ocean, right? We're trying to get them to turn in a pond. So they don't, if it takes them a half a mile to turn around and whatever, they don't care. They got a whole ocean to play in. But performance is more important to us in this scale arena that we play in. So just like Dave was saying, if I understand what he's getting at, it would be worth your while to make that upper rudder functional. It will greatly improve your enjoyment of the boat, because there's nothing more frustrating than having to do an 8-point turn, in a pond to come back towards you again because you ran out of room to turn around.
Okay, well, you've answered my question. I'll figure out a way.
It can be done. We've done it. It can be done.
Yeah, it could be, Rob, that what you need to do is, rather than using my off-the-shelf horns, you may need to use like a wheel collar and grind them down so they're thinner, take up less room.
Well, I don't know if you can see that too well, but you can see what I've got in there so far. And it's the top one. I think I can do the top one very similar to what I did to the bottom. It's just, I'm going to have to take a rod down to it, make a piece of brass as my coupler, and join it in just like I did the bottom. It's just that
Hey, Bob.
What a hassle. I should have built the boat. I guess I should have went bigger.
What? This is too hard?
It's
Bob,
never too hard.
With the turning radius, if you have more speed, it is shorter. It was my experience. If you have more speed on your submerged, then is the turning radius smaller.
Yep, that's true.
It goes
for modern
slower, it is bigger.
When I started this project, this will be my very first, and I'm literally, I mean that, it's going to be the first boat that I'm going to, once I get my watertight compartment and all that figured out, and that'll be fun too. But I am going to get this boat to dive one way or another.
There you go.
Whether tie a ton of rock on it or something, I don't know, but I've got to get this one to go. I've been working a long time to get to this point, and through all of everyone's help and everything else, you've gotten me to this point. And I certainly want to do this one right, so I will find a way to do that. And I understand the importance of it now.
Yeah.
So
So
otherwise I would have just backed off of it. But I see your point about underwater, you got to have a little extra.
You do. And only, and honestly, because of just of the design of like Alpha and Akula, the control surfaces are small. In relation to the boat, they're actually quite small. So it just makes it more challenging. And like, honestly, this file that you're talking about was originally designed for 70-second scale, which is going to yield obviously a larger boat. It would take a lot longer to print out. But I've said this before, I am a big sub guy. 96 is about as small as I would want to play around with. Randy's showing his boat, nice, like it.
That's the original scale right there.
Yep.
What scale?
Randy, this is the first time I've actually seen you.
I just joined the club. I'm usually working on Saturdays, but got lucky today.
This is the man. For everybody, this is the man who's made all of these awesome files. It's good to see you.
Hey.
Well, Randy, the Alpha, the files are tremendous. The build, even it's smaller. And my expectations are to enlarge it to the full capacity of my Dremel and bring it back up, to the 176 size.
172nd, yep.
The files on this little boat are just tremendous. The detail you've got in it and the fitting and everything is just right on the money. So
thank you. I enjoy
liked all your files.
Build these.
And to back up, Rob, you can make that work. You can make the 96 work. Like do not it can work. Don't give up. But 72nd, I like I said, I'm a bigger sub guy. It gives you more opportunity to create smooth linkages, more room to run things efficiently inside the hull. You don't have to compromise geometry because of limited space. So, I see that little piranha.
Well,
Dave,
my plan is to
guys.
make it 170 when I get done with this one. I'm going to build the bigger one of it.
I'm in to bigger boats, guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, my only problem is I can't go to a lake. I have issues where I just can't. I got a pool and that's it. So I've got to make whatever I build, and that's been part of my issue. Even to try to get a dynamic diver, I got to have, it seems like I run short about 10 feet by the time I get a little speed up and try to get it to go under. It'll just barely make it, and I've already smashed into the end of the pool. So
don't discount, a slightly larger boat. If you are limited in terms of your real estate to run your boat and you still want to, to do it and enjoy it, the next level of technical expertise that I would recommend you start exploring is this idea of a bow or stern thruster. Because what that'll allow you to do is get your submerged operation. You can continue straight, stop, and then turn around within the boat length and then come back in the other direction. They're not hard to implement. It's basically a centrifugal pump, a little rotary chopper, like a blender that pushes water from one side to the other with little paddles. And it's just a motor and a speed controller. That's it. Super simple. And if you use a brushed motor, you don't even need to, or a brushless motor, you don't even need to put it in the cylinder. You can just mount it in as a drop-in module in the bow or stern of the boat, and it would give you a whole new dimension of opportunity to operate the boat. Again, looking at the boat behind me, that's a 5.5 foot long boat that can turn about its own axis in the pool.
Rob, if I could put in my 2 cents, now that you've identified your environment, a rather small body of water, and that's about where the only place you can play with. Instead of adding more gizmos, as Bob has just advocated, I recommend making the proper choice of the submarine. You need a maneuverable submarine. So go ahead and bite the bullet and do the German Dolphin or the American Skipjack, or if you will, the Blueback. These guys turn great.
Yeah.
And that's your driving problem is turning radius. So you picked the wrong boat going with an Alpha.
Okay.
That guy won't turn if you talk to it nice.
The other thing that you can do, Rob, and this may irk some people, but you could actually convert because those boats have the support, right, for the rudder. You have a shroud that holds the rudders and dive planes. Combine them all into one control surface and have the entire thing move. That will probably multiply your control surface area by a factor of 3.
Like
and now all of a sudden you've got triple the authority in the pool. It'll look a little wonky, especially with that towed sonar, thing on the top twisting back and forth, but it would be the next level of enjoyment for you to be able to operate.
Yeah.
Or gimbal the propeller in yaw.
Yeah, if you really want to get complicated, sure.
Hey, Bob.
That's pretty narrow back there, Dave.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
rather than, because there's so many Bobs, Google a swingy hinge. It's in the airplane world, model airplane world. And you know how most things have a bell crank that run side to side of the rudder. This thing runs in the same axis. I put one in my sea view to do the rear rudder because I couldn't see a real submarine having tie rods to the rudders. So I put this swingy in there and it worked beautiful, and it takes almost no space at all.
Okay.
But you have to Google it. They still sell them.
What did you call it?
It's called a swingy. It's got a cam in it,
Yeah.
and it's. I used to use it in my model airplanes in the ailerons because I didn't want, if most of that linkage is hidden in the wing, and this allows you to go perpendicular to the movement of the rudder, or up and down, whatever. It just look at it first, and you'll see that if you can use it or not. But it saved a lot of problems with my boat.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's called a swingy.
But on a 72nd Alpha, like Bob was saying, I've seen a guy run one here at Carmel, and it'll turn around in twice its length, doing it the method he talked about. I'd put a clear extension.
Is this the guy who put an auxiliary rudder on the bow, on the bottom?
No, he's got the all flying rudders on his Alpha.
Okay.
He just cut them so they all fly, and it'll turn in less than 2 legs.
Yeah, and
I've
can't
got
tell.
a clear extension on my bottom rudder, and its turning radius is about 1.5 times that.
Well, I did enlarge the bottom rudder. I gave it the original was a 1/2 inch. I enlarged the bottom rudder up to 1 inch just to help a little bit additional.
You'll need more.
I've stepped off a scale just a little bit, but maybe I'll, one time Dave even said, especially on my Bory, I could use a clear, just a piece of plastic and extend that out and then take it off when you're not, if it's, so I guess there's all kinds of ways to do it, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Germany, there is a group, he built Walter submarines, and they always extended the rudders if they designed the model, because it's always too small for the turning radius and diving. Nick, you can remember? Plus minus, and you can, oh wait.
Nice.
But I don't use them, I tested them. Now I did a circuit board.
Oh yeah, nice.
Because it's clear. I can make two battery packs parallel, for example, or I remove one that I don't need, and there comes the ESC, the water pump, LEDs, I don't know. And that is much clearer for the whole situation. So I put it then in somewhere in the submarine, and I can put it off, put it on, and it's really easy and nice. And you don't have so complicated wiring. Go from one circuit board to the next, to the next, to the next. And there is maybe it's something disconnected, and you're looking where's the error. So this would be at now always in my submarines.
There you go.
It's called
Very nice.
XT30 connectors. That means 30 amps. It's enough for the most of submarines. They're drawing they will never draw 30 amps, at least, never.
If you're drawing 30 amps on your submarine, you've done something wrong.
It's a rocket. No, I always using brushless, so they don't draw so much amps, so it's okay.
Yeah, I use that XT30s on that experimental watertight cylinder.
I saw it in the building report, yes.
Yeah, they're nice and small.
That is the big look.
Yeah. Yeah, much more compact and clean.
Yes, it's cleaner, right. So
can you give us an update on the watertight cylinders, Bob?
Yeah, did you watch my video yesterday?
No, I wasn't here yesterday.
Yeah, no, I posted it. It's on YouTube. It's like 90% done. So basically I'm on final assembly, and then once that's done, I go through, make the final parts list, and then instructions, and then we're launching. So still basically online for end of the month as of right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Bob, I got that.
Is the book also available as PDF file?
Yes, it is.
Ah.
The link is on the product page on my website. It goes to, it's called Outskirts Press. It's my publishing company. And if you click on PDF, you'll be able to download it. It's $10.
Okay, I will do it later or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because to send it to Germany is too expensive.
Well, that's not me, that's the shipping companies. But think about this, like honestly, to ship something from here to there in like 5 days for $30 is still pretty cheap.
But DHL changed the system and raises the prices. They become really.
I know, and then you guys have like about 150,000% duties and taxes too.
Well, Bob, are you still going to do a hard copy in your book?
Yeah, it's been for sale for like a week. I think I've already sold like 50 copies.
A hard copy?
Yeah.
You mean hard?
It's right on the homepage of my website.
Okay. All right. I'll double check it again.
Quick, everybody beat up Robert.
All right.
I just got done reading about wet and dry boats, so that was good.
There you
I knew what you were talking about.
It's already on the New York Times bestseller list.
It's probably the #1 selling book in RC submarine novels.
There's a new subcategory on the Times book list.
Yeah.
Get it?
I will say, as somebody pointed out, there's a missing paragraph on the end of page 63. So if you're really grumpy about that, you can send it back. I'll refund it.
I'm not gonna.
Hey, Bob, it's a good book.
Thank you.
Excellent.
It's a primer for people just getting into it. I mean, a lot of this stuff you guys already knew about, but it'll just, this is a very intimidating hobby. For those of us who've been doing this for a while, this is like, you pick it up over years and years, but for people just getting into it, I'm hoping just to head off the basic questions.
Well, what I appreciate, Bob, is the amount of time it took you to do it.
It did take some time. Yeah. And I thought I was done, and I posted up and everybody's like, well, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I guess I could add that. And what about this? Okay, yeah, sure, I can add that too.
When is the sequel coming out?
When I learn
a sequel.
I got to learn more.
I like the line that I read that said, keep your first one small and simple. I go, oh shit.
Yeah, you didn't abide by that recommendation, did you?
No, not at all.
Jeez.
But honestly, the rules apply to the vast majority of people. There's always exceptions, and honestly, taking a look at what he's managed to accomplish, there's people that break the norms. So,
well, don't forget, I was, and I'm not bragging. I was a professional model maker, so I was exposed to a lot of this stuff, just not in submarines. So, I did have an unfair advantage in that.
Understood.
All your stuff, all the stuff that Dave Merriman has said, and I looked at all this stuff, and I pick and choose what I want to use, and it really worked out well.
There's a rationale to what you're doing to that sea view that definitely belies your experience beforehand.
Everything is rational except the whole hydraulic equipment tray lifting thing. That's just showing off.
Wow. Yeah, and we resent you for that.
Hey, right, can I show you guys?
Hey, I just before we go, I just need to make a quick mention here. I have a Subfest organizational meeting that starts in like 2 minutes, and so it's a hard stop. So this is everybody's last chance to get last minute questions, comments, or show offy pictures and comments in.
How I can shorten this in a nice way. I hate it if a servo cable is too long. It's too chaotic. Any idea?
Well, cut it and recrimp it.
Yeah, you pop the clips out of the end.
Yes.
And then cut the wire to length, and then you can buy new little inserts, and you just crimp those on and put them in, and you've got a new shortened cable that looks factory fresh.
Yep.
It's like some kind of a
you can buy that too. You can buy that.
You can crimp it. I usually solder it just to be safe. But yeah, there are these little metal pins, and you just really put them on, and they just push into that black piece of plastic, and you're good.
Buy a kit, and you can do it.
Yeah, it comes with everything. It's got like the male end, the female end, the black ends, the cable. It's like $4.50.
I hate it because it's always too long and too chaotic in the sub.
Yeah.
A very easy thing to do is just keep folding it over and put a little tie wrap around it to hold it in place.
Aren't those bullet connectors?
Talking servos.
No, we're talking about like servo connectors, the 3-wire servo connectors.
It's the angle control for the pitch here. So it's really long, too long.
Yep. Yeah, they're available everywhere. You make up your own cable lengths, custom cable lengths, and that kind of thing, and they come with everything you need.
To see, maybe by AliExpress, maybe somehow. What's with the remote control? The new one.
Say that again?
The remote control, the new one, 75 megahertz.
Oh, the remote, yeah. The company out of UK that I've been dealing with, they got hit by COVID and everything got suspended. Apparently they're still working on it, but it got pushed back like 6 months or something. So I got.
Hey, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
It's a little turbine. That's the latest stupid I'm gonna try with torpedoes coming up.
Well, turbine, what? What do you got? A gas generator?
No, I found there's this company, Leland, that makes custom CO2 cartridges in a lot of sizes. They make some really small ones. So I was kind of playing around with the idea of doing a gas torpedo, but using these dental insert turbines. I don't know. I got too much damn free time. It sounds like fun.
Medical help now.
My man.
All right.
Honestly, those damn motors are fast. I tried gripping onto the shaft of it, burnt the crap out of my finger in a split second. So it'll be kind of cool to see how fast, if it can make it work, and then see how fast those suckers go.
Do not stick your fingers on rotating shafts.
Yeah, I think I still got the burn marks actually.
All right, I need to move on to Subfest because if I don't get this organizational thing figured out, nothing's going to end up happening. But it was good seeing everyone. 2 weeks from now, we'll have our next one. Keep up your stuff. It was good seeing you.
Thanks, Bob.
You bet.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks for the help, Dave, guys.
You bet. Talk to you later.
Swingy, swingy.
All right. Good seeing you guys.
Okay.
Take care.